Yeah, it's about a minute or so. We can go live.
$3.59, right?
Is it
Zero
okay
hours?
if I show my
4
bottle?
o'clock.
I don't think that's liquor I'm drinking or wine because we don't want. Everybody knows I don't drink alcohol, but
we filled it up with the stuff from our sprint car fuel tank, right? Now, it is now 3:59. Are we ready to go live or are we already live?
we'll go live in about a minute. Oh wait, we are live.
Are we, guys, are we live?
Anybody out there? Hello? Hello? More if the microphone's working. Audio. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yep, see the green dot.
Where?
Well, interesting. We are live. Oh, comments. Oh, hello everyone.
There's a whole bunch of you already out there.
Yeah, I
Nice.
just, we went live a little earlier. I didn't realize we was talking. Turbo Mini in the UK.
Hey!
By the way, I'm Marvin Burke, and most of y'all probably don't know this, but this is David Vizard here.
Can I just say a little hi to Turbo Mini, right? Hey, I still remember our chat that we had when I came over to Swansea University, was it? Yep. You were one of the highlights of that visit there, so hopefully you're doing good.
Anyway, we'd planned on doing a session Saturday night this week, but Matthew Hussey, that's been with us for about a week, I was really looking forward to him being on with us, and of Chaos Tuning, wasn't it? He was going to be with us again another week, but he had a emergency back at the shop come up and had to leave abruptly
But we
yesterday.
have to, don't get the wrong idea, it was a good emergency. He had to take care of a very large order, right? Could not miss that out. It wasn't something with the family or anything like that. It was like, holy smoke, I'm going to have to go home to deal with this, right? So that's what he did, but he will be back, and I'm sure we'll have him on another, we'll invent a time to put him on, won't we? Right? Because interesting diesel stuff, right? So, which,
And I mean, he's got an LS on the brain too, so let's not forget about that.
Yeah, this guy is into diesels, turbos, and nitrous motors, right? So it kind of covers the field there. Anyway, we had a rather than question and answer just across the board, we had an idea that we may focus the questions on what we're currently doing, and that is LS heads, diesel heads, and how to get the best of them, molding the ports so that people can see what we've done to them, etc. And Marvin has been on to me. Well, I guess you better tell them.
LS. It's time for us to move on and start sharing some of this with the public.
Yeah.
We've been doing port molds this week.
And that's a port mold of a done port. Let's see if they can see the difference here, right? Now one of them we didn't fill the port up completely because we ran out of. This is the important part from there to, the last about 3 inches of it.
This is the unfinished port right here.
That's the stock port.
Stock
Yeah.
port.
And oh yes, I wanted to say something here. One of it was one of your students put you onto this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Marvin's college students put us onto this here. It's available from Dollar General, right? And it's dirt cheap, and it's pretty good at taking carbon off of ports. It's not super good, but for 99 cents, you soak something in this overnight, and it's probably going to clean up pretty good. Now, show us, there's some samples over there, right? That exhaust port there, an intake port, they were black. This was all that we used to clean it, right? Took a bit of brushing, but they come up with pretty carbon free. And the exhaust port, which is always a bugaboo, came up clean as well. But that said,
that stuff's so popular. They sell it by the gallon. It's like $3 a gallon, but
yeah.
you never find the gallons. This is all they got because people buy it as quick as it comes in
And this
there.
is a totally unsolicited.
And this is totally awesome, David.
It says, oh, that's what it's called, totally awesome. It's not totally awesome, but it's getting on that way. Right, now, take a look at this here. This is a diesel port, right, this was, and this is a used one. You see this is the two valves here when they're going into this port. This is black, right? Just take a look at, see how clean it is. And that was with about 20 minutes of brushing with that totally awesome stuff over there. Right, so now.
I think in a way, David's giving away our secret, what we was going to talk about and share, what most people commonly don't do, you know. Could you imagine a cylinder head that looked like that right there? That's
no.
But now you add that to it, and there's your 1/4 of the cylinder head.
Yes.
Why do we do this, David?
Right. Okay. I'm telling you this under pressure, right? The reason I do it is because I'm trying to get the best from the port, regardless of the cost. Because nearly all, I say, people that come in to get heads, nearly all of my clients come in to get some data from something. They're not questioning how much it costs. For instance, these cylinder heads here have to be better than anybody else's out there. If I don't deliver top notch, I don't have any clients, or I have a lot less. Now, the point is this: when you start porting ahead, most people think of removing metal. I have to tell you that if you really get down to it, there's almost as much putting material back into the design. Right? Now, this is not what the average guy can do for the most part. However, there's a lot to be had from being able to replace metal. And that kind of brings me to the point of 4-valve heads. Now, we don't talk about those much, but we've got some pretty trick stuff, haven't we?
Yeah, but I guess the first question come to my mind for, you know, I was around here and we started doing this, and I understood why then, but why would somebody take a perfectly good $1,000 cylinder head and cut it up in pieces?
Because the information we get is worth way more than $1,000. What do you think this diesel head cost? $1,000?
I'd say it's probably $1,000 cylinder head.
We probably saw up $5,000 worth of heads.
Hand me that one right there. All the way to the right.
All the way to the right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be careful, that's 2 pieces.
Let me just move my there. Yeah, I wish it was. Right. Okay, can you show them this? Here's
For
what
those that know, I don't drink alcohol. That's not alcohol.
Here's a section we're working on here, right? We've sawn this diesel head in two, right, on the bandsaw, right? Then we put it on the mill and we mill both the saw cut, both halves, such that the material that's now missing from both halves is 1/4 of an inch. Put this plexiglass in, screw it to one half, adapt the other half to screw to that, and they locate on the valves. Picture the valves. Oh, when we cut it in half, we cut through the valve guides so that there's a valve guides are on this half and that half. This allows us to use the valve guides as dowel pins, right? Because I mean, you know, they're about 1/1000th clearance on these diesels, and what that allows us to do.
I broke your 8mm drill bit, but I've got a new one ordered from. Sorry about that.
My 8mm one.
Yeah.
What did we break that on?
Drilling
a 7mm hole. Oh
no,
my
making the valve opening fixture.
Oh.
But anyway.
So what we've got there is a cylinder head, which we can open up this way. Usually that's the most convenient way. Here's our stock LS head. Now it doesn't look much different. There's a bit of reworking in the ports there, but that is where I you can see in the exhaust port there the plastic and there. So let me tell you what we need to tell everybody with the LS heads so far. It's not that we're new to LS heads. Just for reference here,
when we cut these apart, just so you know, after we cut them apart, we take the width of the saw that we cut them with. Then we remove additional material, so there's 250 thousandths worth of material removed. So it's a exact copy of the original height before we machine the sheet out to match the port.
Yeah. Anyway, where was I? Yes. One of the things that we're finding. Oh, I was going to tell you about Ultra Pro's LS heads. I got to see a lot of work, very advanced work done by Don Lucito and his guys at Ultra Pro Machining here in Charlotte. And now Don is a very experienced pro stock and NASCAR cylinder head guy. To say he's good at it would kind of be an understatement. Gifted is probably the best bet, right? He was responsible for 95% of the work on the Yates head, as I understand it. If I'm wrong there, I'll be sure to correct you, give you the correct story. But I'm hoping to get Don on the program down the road a ways. But anyway, now the thing is that what we're doing with the LS heads here is I'm starting off with, Marvin and I are starting off with what we feel is the most common, lowest level LS head out there, and seeing whether or not you should panic about getting a better one. And we just started that video.
That's a 70. That's the 706.
That's the 706 casting, and mitten made metal. No, we haven't done anything with the LT direct injection heads. I haven't even looked at them. Talk more about 4-valve heads. We will do that. Bill, I'm sorry about the picture.
Yeah, we're
But
fine to the bandwidth that's available to us. We're near Charlotte, but we're still in the rural areas of Charlotte, so we don't get the good fortune of being in a high bandwidth area. So, you know, that's why probably why the picture freezes every now and then. Just
and
it is what it is.
you know, because it doesn't cost you anything, it's still good value for money. Anyway, one of the things that we're doing is moving through the LS heads one at a time to show where the snags are and where the advantages are. Finishing this one here probably in the next 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Right on the 706. Now, one of the things that we're going to show is not only where it's advantageous to do something, but also where it's a disadvantage to do something. And there's quite a few videos out there that one of the things they tell you to do, you should not be doing. It's an easy way to wipe out a 5 to 7 horsepower on a engine that's not too far off stock. Now I used to have these heads on my truck, 4.6 truck, and
You mean
my 2000 and
5.3?
no, it was 4.8.
4.8. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you now, I was a bit quiet about this because it only made 485 horsepower at the rear wheels, right? So I'll tell you more about that down the road. Anyway, the point is this. The LS1 head has the intake port is already way too big, and we're going to demonstrate how the porting on it does achieve more flow, but you leave the swirl there, right? This is one of the things that these engines have to have. The whole port is designed to swirl, and they have pretty strong swirl within the lift range that they have. If you can port it out of the ports very easy so that they get down to almost no swirl, and then you lose low speed torque. You don't really gain any top end horsepower either. So that's not a good thing to do. Now let's look at that question there with the 4-valve stuff. Right, so let's go through the results. Professor Fannin, US authorized to do this, is that right? Well, kind of. I mean, we can do it here, right? Ultra Pro machine, that thing is. But yeah, you can get them to do it, and they'll do a great job, right? So, anyway, 4-valve heads. Right now, this is a mystery to us, isn't it? Why those 4-valve heads always have ports which are?
It's a mystery how much you can get out of some of the brand new Honda and Suzuki motorcycle heads, and some of the Porsches and
well, remember Tom that came down to have
right. That's what I was thinking about, that Suzuki.
Actually, that was a Honda head.
A Honda, okay.
Yeah.
2000 is a 2020 or 21.
It was a Honda
750. It's a factory racing bike.
A small Honda motor.
650.
I can't remember the displacement on it, but anyway, Tom is not a young guy. He's in his 50s. He does all of his own prep work, and he races as a semi-pro. And the thing is, he's competitive. Came to us and said, "Look, here's the cylinder head that we're using. Everybody's using this. I'm just a bit slower than the guys who have big bucks to get, or are factory riders." And so we analyzed his Honda head, which was making some. And the interesting thing is when you analyze that head, the IOP program showed that it was right on the money, wasn't it? Every way we tested it, it showed the recommendations from IOP showed that this head was there. So we had, what, 10 days trying to extract blood from a stone. We did manage to make enough difference to it to probably generate another 5 horsepower. But that 5 horsepower might have been all it needed for Tom to win a race. Now, that was in 10 days. I think that what we needed was Honda did an excellent job, but that's not the case.
Well, I was impressed watching you. I'm an intermediate porter. I learn every day, but I'm sitting here watching, helping David develop this cylinder head with Tom, and he goes in there and removes, don't even look like 2 or 3 thousandths in a couple different places, and knife edge to split, and what we start at about 58 CFM, and you gained about 10 or 12%.
Well, it depends where you looked at it in the curve. The first thing we managed to do was to swirl in there that was off center. That's going to be good for torque, but not in the RPM range that Tom uses racing. I mean, he's up 14,500 RPM, right? Boy, that's humming along, isn't it? So
I think he said his range was 9 to 14.5.
Yeah, that sounds about it. But anyway, the Honda head that he brought to us was one of the few heads that had the intake port about the right size, wasn't it? I mean, it was so close to optimal that we may have been able to add a bit or take a bit away for the odd 1 or 2 horsepower. But now that might sound in motor that's making it was over 100 horsepower, wasn't it? From what I know, I don't think it was 750. I think it was 500. Right? Anyway, the point is this: it was an engine which really produced. Now, if we start looking at car engines, or automobile engines, for some reason or another, the ports are always way too big. Right? So if you've got a 4-valve car engine, on average, if you take any material out of the port, you've just made it worse.
There, Dennis remembered it was a 600 cc.
600, right? 600, and yeah.
Dennis was here.
Thank you, Dennis.
Do you know Grace Engine in the UK?
I know the name, right? I think I've heard somebody mention it.
And Lenny's wanting how to build a horsepower center. If we got a schedule in 2022, we'll have to plan one way in advance for him.
Iceland.
Yes.
So I need some time to plan a trip to be able to attend. You know what? I've never been to Iceland. I've always wanted to go. Right? Why don't you round up 50 people in Iceland and I'll come to you? Right? Do you want a trip to Iceland?
Yeah, I remember the Top Gear episode where they took them Tundra Toyota vehicles, the big, huge balloon tires.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of what was that Trucks cartoon that they done had everything was
and it floated.
Yeah,
right.
But so, yeah, they equipped these Toyotas to run over the ice. But I do remember corresponding with you, Lenny, and I've had you in mind. But we usually don't plan nothing that far in advance. But if we don't make it there, and I will let you know just soon if I can get David to schedule something in 22. But anyway, back to the
PC Block 02. I'm assuming that's big Chevy Block 02, right? And the 2 Clayton dynamometer. Yeah, I kind of figured that's what you meant. Now, I've used a Clayton dynamometer that was for aero engines.
World War II.
Yes, I know. He said it in his next one. right? And it was a monster. I mean, it would hold back a Pratt & Whitney 1830 engine to 1,000 RPM, and that would be making 2,800 foot-pounds of torque, right? While it chugged over 1,000 RPM. Some of the big blocks we've done required a dyno like that to be able to hold them back. 2,000 horsepower at not much RPM. Okay, so
Here's this head that we split right here. I'm gonna change directions. We can go back where we was at for in case so we get lost. This was the same cylinder head right here, except this our next step. If you notice how we've cut out of the plexiglass right here, we actually to match the rest of the port as we're assembling
when
this.
you roughed it out, you put the other half on, and then try and cut the ports. Try and cut the plexiglass so that it matches the port. It's impossible not to touch the aluminum, but the thing is you can usually get it within a few thousandths of what it was before you got in there.
On the LS head for you, and I done a back to back the mate to that cylinder head that
It
with
was about 2 CFM different.
no less than two CFM change from the unsliced cylinder head to the sliced and prepped one. And what I see that we go when you got a complete port. So that's the big huge advantage in port development. You working on one, you remove some metal from the short side turn, you just can't quite get the shape that you want. 4 inches back in the port, then the 90-degree turn there. But with that right there, you can get right into it, and it's difficult to shape the epoxy to get it to the shape that you want to with your fingers. You got 3-inch long fingers and a 4-inch hole. You're trying to shape. You use the wooden spatula or something trying to get that shape, but it's difficult to get that perfect shape.
This is a prime example, as well as this, the 4-valve one. There is a great deal of work that can be done on the floor of the port on the slow side of it. That would be the side nearest the cylinder wall floor, right? The air kind of cuts across. The LS port on these 706s is if you are going to use the heads with a manifold that you modified to suit the heads, they can be made to be pretty damn good. The big deal with them is that the floor of the port, have we got one? No.
Oh, the numbers we got stock off that are slightly better than the best generation 1-cylinder head we've done for GM factory head. That is the Vortec head. So
let me put this here.
Let's get rid of some of this stuff.
Right, I don't know if you can see, but the bottom here, believe it or not, needs about 3/4 of an inch adding in. This is a semi-redundant area. That floor needs to carry on in and then go into the turn. The actual short side turn itself is pretty good. Now the point is you might say, well, why don't you use some better cylinder heads? Well, if a guy goes to the wrecking yard and he buys an engine with these heads on, guess what heads he's got? These, right? So if he's got to buy another set of heads, then the money goes up. On the other hand, if somebody tells him or her that you can make these heads work by doing this, this, and this, he now has they have an option, right? Now, these are definitely not the best of cylinder head for as far as an LS motor is concerned. However, it doesn't take much to find 50 horsepower from them without going overboard, right? They don't exactly wear out very quickly, or don't seem to be. The ones we get in, the guides and all that seem to be pretty good. Everything shapes up. I don't know how the water jackets fare and things like that, but the bottom line is this. You can build it. Oh, we ran some with a flow test. It showed that you could build a 6.0 engine with 400 and a 10 to 1, 490 foot-pounds of torque and 516, is it, or 538? 538. Yeah, 538 horsepower to run on pump gas, right? Now, if you were going to build one that you're going to use as a toy, and it doesn't have to go on the road, and you went up to 13 to 1, right? Then you're looking at, on these heads, normally aspirated, with a single 4-barrel, you're flowing enough air and getting the swirl and port velocity and all this to make about 610, 615 horsepower and 540 foot-pounds. And that for a 6-liter engine, that's pretty good. We're talking about some serious performance from that, aren't we? And you still only got these heads.
Let me talk about what I think about these heads. This is the lowest level performance LS head that GM makes, and they got a really low desire factor. The only person that wants these from the junkyard is somebody that needs to replace one on an overheated engine, or some reason it's been damaged. But when you're looking for a budget level entry engine, you know, there's lots of people that's got classic cars out there, and I think there's a big market for, you know, people. They just want an LS engine because it's a modern power plant.
Yep.
They can do the fuel injection relatively cheaply.
Yes.
You know, whether it's a 37 Chevrolet pickup, or if it's a 42 Ford or whatever, a 72 Chevrolet station wagon, or you know, some people think it's sacrilegious, but you know, they can put it in their Ford Mustang for all I care. But you know, you can get into it. You can make decent performance in a decent powered power plant for a relatively budget price. You ain't throwing out $1,000 for a set of heads to start with to build a $5,000 engine plus the heads plus the camshaft and the miscellaneous stuff. So, you know, it's just the best way to go for someone's got a budget that's building this out of their $200 or $300
Metal
extra.
Maniac says, can we turn the volume up on the mic a bit, please?
Well, let's show everybody the mic and see if this helps.
Does that sound quick? Metal Maniac, does that sound any better?
Okay, that's a little closer to her mouth, so that helped the volume. I can also do this right here. Let's see. Audio. Take the automatic out and let's put some more gain in it. Okay, how's that now? Does that help any? Is that overpowering? Is that too much?
Let's go through. Oh, is polyquad is beneficial for that Honda 600 engine? Well, that's our next move on that engine, because Tom's coming back, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right now he's got.
We saw a 10%, a 10+% gain on the port of one of the best factory Honda cylinder heads that they've, you know, in modern terms.
I am going to get a guest on the show that
was just by, you know, just basic port work. You know what? Something else that struck me about Tom, he come to the porting school, not as much to learn about porting, but he paid the big price for porting school because he's a racer, and his sole intention was just to develop that cylinder head under your guidance.
Yep. I'm predicting that before he gives up motor racing, and he may be as old as.
I think Anthony gets what I was trying to say there. You know, there's a lot of people just make $400, $500, $600 a week, and they live on. They might have $50 or $100 or $150 a week extra that they can spend on stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of people want to build their engine, build their projects. You know, have just a few dollars extra every week.
Let's address Anthony's comment here, right? What we're finding is the basic mods to these heads doesn't require super skills, right? You can get at everything you want to, and there's not that much to do. Look, exhaust ports, right? Can you see much difference in those? No. We went from 69 cc's on those to 75 on those. We went from 183 CFM on the flow with this at 700 to 200 on this. Now that's not a huge gain, but here's one of the things that we have found out from some of these earlier LS heads. The seats here and the blend into the port is not conducive to good flow. We're finding that the discharge coefficients at 50 and 100 are way behind what a lot of other stock heads are. But as soon as they get up to any decent lift, this exhaust port here is very performance orientated shape. I mean, if we'd gone back to cup car stuff 25 years ago, that would have been a race winning exhaust port. Now here's the port difference between the intake and exhaust. Again, we had to make sure that we did not kill swirl. There's a step in. Yeah, let's remove that there. There's this step in the port, and I don't know if you can see it. It's the cylinder center side of the port, and it comes down, and there's a step in it here. And what this does is it slows down the flow here, and it leaves the flow on this side stronger, so that it comes in and swirls around. Well, one of the things that I tend to see is that a lot of people will port the heads and get rid of this step. If you do that, it cuts the swirl quite a lot, and I think I mentioned this earlier on, that it kills the low end. But the work has been concentrated on getting rid of the a bump there and coming round and out like this. This step is still here. It's just a little more streamlined because I didn't want to get rid of the swirl. This has the same swirl curve now as this one here, but it flows about 25, 30 CFM more. Right?
He says he can hear you much better when you lean into the microphone.
Like this. Just nod and I'll...
Can you hear us okay right now?
Anyway, here's the thing, guys. There is porting potential with these 706 heads, and a lot of that potential is in doing the valve seats right. And in my video, I'm going to give you a trick move here, which will make the small 1.89 valve look like it's a 2-inch valve, right? And it's just in the way the seat's done. So check that video out. If you haven't subscribed, also subscribe. Right now, any more?
Let me revisit the
Hi, John.
I'm gonna Hey, John Wilburn. Hey, brother. I like to revisit the 706 head, the potential uses for what you got to consider. Let's go back. Let's talk about the lesson about when you're building the engine. You know, you think about where is this engine going to run 80% of the time I'm driving and I'm building. And the average person is between 2,000 and 4,000 RPM. You can build an engine that's makes power at 6,800, 7,200 RPM, but it's impractical to drive it on the street. It's runs so rough and it's got such low power at low RPM.
Yeah.
But this head right here, before you ever even port it, it's a really good head below 4,000 RPM. Then it starts running out of power when you get above that. But you can do the stuff we're going to show on the video. You can just do the basic common porting stuff that you do to every cylinder head without a flow bench. Just 20 or 30 minutes of port.
Yes.
And turn this into a phenomenal performing cylinder head for that style
almost
engine.
no money.
Right.
As well. And I forgot to say this, right? Most of the engines using this head have the wrong cam in. After modifying these heads the way we recommend, the cam becomes nearer right, but it's never going to be right for the way the heads are done. So what we're going to do is give guidance on cam selection for this. So although the head may only constitute a 30 or 40 horsepower gain, using it with the right cam will probably make that 60 or 70 gain, plus a whole bunch more of low speed torque. If you've got a truck, you'll be able to pull stumps out of the ground with it.
And Trevor BR, how you pronounce it, are there no-nos for a home porter? Did I get the right one? Or was that?
Yes.
Yeah, Trevor B. Yes, don't go in it hog wild. Baby steps. Just you think you need to do more? What's was Stroker McGurk saying?
If some is good, more is better, and too much is just right.
Stay with some or stay below some. Just clean up the pocket and clean up the casting if you got any casting flaws, and just clean the chamber up. The chambers on these heads are fairly good. They ain't a whole lot of chamber work to even do. So
Jesse, see what he said there? Turning pipe is turbulence factor, right? Let me
turbulence.
Are you going to correct them or?
Why do you want turbulence?
You're going to get
turbulence is uncontrolled movement of air.
No, wait a minute, not quite the right word there. It's uncontrollable.
Yes.
Right? Let me make a point here. The induction system of a car, any engine, the flow is always turbulent, whether you like it or not. And I tell you this because the Reynolds number of the port is over 2,000, right? And the flow will become turbulent at idle. You don't drive around at idle. So are we trying to get rid of turbulence? Well, yes and no.
Let's see, come back this way just a little bit.
That was a cunning move. Right, yes. Best place to get porting supplies.
And Dave Monahan, just a good friend. He's not a sponsor. Yeah, maybe he'll give us money on the road, but we think a lot of Dave at Goodson.
Basically, let me tell you what Dave does for us. He tells people about our seminars, right? And also, if people call up with problems that they don't know the answer to, performance problems, they'll, if they're a good customer of theirs, they'll email me and say, what do you think? Wayne Ireland. God, that sounds like a movie star's name. Hi David from Australia. Thank you for sharing. Done my first cylinder, used a Dremel drill, massive gains, 244 6 litre and 4 litre Ford. Right?
6 cylinder.
6 cylinder, yeah. Yeah. Hey, some of those Australian Falcons, they look pretty slick cars. I've always thought somebody knows how to style cars down in Australia. And the Holden Commodores.
Yeah.
The wrench.
Anthony's, I think that's in reference to that. The 2-liter 6-cylinder. It's a Barra, probably. We'll see what Wayne Ireland has to say. Does sound like a movie star name.
Yes. Have I tried the New Way seat cutters to do a, well, New Way also make a rail with a hand lever on it, and you drive the cutters with that, and I used that for years, and did a nice job with it. I went on from that to a Surdy for must be 20 years.
I wonder what he's referring to there.
We did it.
Oh no, not that one.
We set up JP, remember, with the New Way cutters?
Yes.
Right? And I showed him how to do them, and I'd forgotten.
What are you referring to, Don? Mint tumble. Was you talking about the turbulence? Boy, I sound country hillbilly hick when I say turbulence. People make fun of me for around here, but other parts of the country, they're really impressed with my accent for some reason. I can't understand why.
Yeah, Steve Norman didn't.
Be aware that the sound left from your microphone is really low and hard to understand when you are talking. We just need to speak up, I guess, Dave. We got to get used to that.
Really? I can hear him, no problem. What's the problem you guys have? Right? Actually, I've got a bit of a sore throat at the moment, so talking much louder is a bit difficult. Anyway, yes, we had one of our porting students from Australia. Sorry, South Africa. Let's get the accent right. South Africa, right?
No,
he's an
American. He lives lived in Belgium, and he's a diplomatic attaché, and he's stationed in Africa.
Right, there's a. Anyway, he wanted to cut his own seats, and that at the moment he's in South Africa, and there's nowhere near him that's got a proper machine shop, right? So I suggested he bought the New Way system.
And he likes classic cars. He buys 60s and 70s cars and does big block Chevrolets and big block Pontiacs.
Yeah.
He emailed me here a couple weeks ago wanting to know where he could find a Slim Jim transmission. I bet they ain't but one or two people out there even know what a Slim Jim is, but
I've never heard of it.
It's kind of like a TH300 without a torque converter. It's got a centrifugal clutch in it, in a kind of the way you remember the centrifugal clutch that was on your Briggs Stratton Tiller or some of the go-karts is works similar to that right there, except it's moved a whole vehicle around. It's called a Slim Jim. GM done back in the early to mid 60s. Mainly in the Pontiacs.
I've still never heard of it, which is surprising. Anyway. But okay, what else are we on to here?
Hello from Sweden.
Oh, big block, big Chevy block. Yes, we've also got a grinding. A Sioux grinder. Well, ours is a Goodson one. Well, no.
No, it's a Sioux grinder with Goodson supplies.
Sioux grinder with Goodson supplied stones. Yeah. Yes. Rena Furman. have I ever modified it. I should qualify that. I've done the Chrysler Hemi heads from there, but I've never built a whole engine. Now, I don't want somebody leaping up and say, can you do mine? Right now, I am physically so affected by age and too many bangs at racetracks and things like this, I couldn't even lift an iron Chrysler Hemi head.
To me, an early Chrysler Hemi is just it's a brute force approach, and they had really poor engineering went into designing that, even though they made good power, big cubic inch and wide open throttle stuff, but Chrysler's really went after and improved and fixed a lot of the stuff that they just figured, well, instead of fixing a problem, we'll just make it bigger. We'll make it have more.
Yeah. Now, the Chrysler Hemi relied on a lot of
I probably pissed somebody off for that. But.
Aero engine work, and I actually knew the guy that was responsible for the design work of the original Chrysler Hemi engine, and this will surprise a lot of guys. It wasn't done at Chrysler's. It was done at
a big no.
What?
Polish the ports, polish the intake ports on a direct after porting. No, not even doing the cylinder heads. I already know the answer to that one.
Look, polishing does not make the airflow more, right? In fact, with our manifolds, what we do is we get a coarse tooth cutter and very carefully cut the surface so that it's lots of little dimples, and it'll pick up flow, right? Also, we'll cut wet flow. Now, I'm not too good at doing it, but I can tell you that there's 3 guys out there I know who can do a really good job. That is Charlie from down in Florida, that Chad Spears from Spears Racing Heads, and Larry Moe.
Daniel knows, he understands what's going on with the boundary layer and the polishing. Boundary layers, laminar.
But Daniel, boundary layers look like they should be the simplest thing going, right? Wrong. They get into all kinds of stuff that's almost mind-bending. No, it is, right? I've seen lots of traces in this what's it photography, it shows eddies and things like this, and smoke traces, not as good as the photography stuff, but that can show a lot of eddies. Now, but it's not as sensitive as you might think. It'll show. First off, it looks like it's laminar, right? But if you give it long enough, you'll find that it wasn't.
There's a good video on here of a professor. This video was made in the 50s or 60s. He was a professor at MIT. What is his name? Trying to think of his name. Anyway, he's got a really good video on boundary layers, university lecture style setting that really, open your eyes to the complexity.
We're talking about that guy that does the hydrogen bubbles in the.
Yeah.
Can you remember what these guys would have to put into Google to?
Okay, I'm looking for his name right here. We're still live on the page.
We're trying to sort you fellas out here, right? So.
Water method. Let's go on. We'll come back to this in just a second.
And to Thomas, water methanol injection keeps my end. Water injection or water methanol injection is so underrated that it's unbelievable. Right, so. No, I don't see anything up there. I'm sure they'll find it. Right. Uh, when was it done? About 1953, 54?
Yeah, it's black and white.
Yep. And there's a lot of ingenuity went into it.
Well, any other time, it's on the tip of time.
Yep. Anyway, let's get back with the comment here, right? Shot peanut, Jesse, right? That's another thing that's underestimated, shot peening. Before the thing came up, I always used to shot peen the manifolds, right? With broken shot. King of Random, he made a hydrogen tank, it works, the wrench. That must be the guy, yes. Water and hydrogen.
It's not King of Random.
Right. Tom Hoover, the father of the Hemi. But that's not quite right. The guy that designed the cylinder head worked at Westlake. And his name was Brian. Can't remember his last name. That's due to my brain surgery. But his name was Brian. Unfortunately passed away about, I guess, years ago now. And the thing was, he was my age, or a couple of years older. And anyway, the thing was, when he designed that cylinder head, he was still an apprentice at Westlake. What he did was he used a lot of the stuff that was sorted out for aero engines, right? And based his design on that. And originally, the compression ratio that was going to be used was only about 8 to 1 or so, 8.5. And at that, it was fine. But the design, a Hemi design is only good for low compression or supercharged engines. By the time you get to a decent compression ratio, it's the wrong style to use. Unbeatable for supercharged engines, right? I think I prefer a Hemi style engine like a Hemi, such as was used by the Pratt & Whitney R2800R engine, amongst many others, than having the 4-valve setup like the Merlin used. Much more simple, more reliable, a totally unshrouded intake, and only a Hemi can do that for you. And easy to build, could be done on a production line, and the R2800 engine was almost bulletproof, right? So.
Barry Belmont.
Was it? That sounds like it.
In fundamentals of the boundary layer. BARYBELMONT.
You guys should simple the inside of an exhaust header and see the flow go way up. Dimple the inside. Okay, right. I never would make a very good decoding spy, you know, it's a... Yes. Big block Chevy. I think a polyspherical 318, right? I remember those engines when they came out. Shows how old I am, doesn't it? A piece of advice here, and this is based on memory going back 50 years, is that you need to try and make that engine have as big an initial displacement as possible. 318 with a blower, you're going to have to put a lot of boost in there to make the chamber be as the best it can. How many motors should I turn on and when? Any amount you want to do, this is Don Dotterer, any amount you want so long as you're consistent with it. Well, say you flow, you have one motor for every, say, 75 cubic feet. And so that when your motor number one gets to 75 cubic feet of flow or more, you swap over to 2. And make a note of that on any of your deals here. Now, we need to establish here whether you're using the floating depression method or the fixed depression. Thank you, Steve, for the comment on my Flowbench book. Right.
And back to the
polyquad one. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Mr. Vizard, on your polyquad setup, is it all targeted to get swirl into the cylinder? Not really. Swirl is getting mixture motion into a 4-valve engine that it actually wants is not easy. The polyquad also did increase flow considerably as well, because it ends up where you don't get ports fighting each other with the flow coming in both ways and banging in like this. It came in and it had a tendency to do that. So it was also up by a pretty reasonable deal. But the big deal was that extra flow was utilized very effectively by not only swirling the mixture, but it retained the tumble. If you've just got tumble by itself, anything over about a 10-to-1 compression ratio, it will quench that tumble. So there won't be much left. Now with the polyquad one, what we found is that not only does it tumble like this coming out of the valves, but that tumble went round the cylinder like this. So it was a combination of tumble and swirl, which got renamed as twirl. Now, one of my buddies came up with that, one of them, and I can't remember which one it was, but I thought it was very apt, twirl. The polyquad head that we did for my friend down in Trinidad for his Mitsubishi, the center of rotation was off about 1/2 inch from the spark plug. So people think that having the spark plug in the middle of the cylinder is the place to have it. No, it's not. If you've got swirl going around the center, centered on the cylinder, there's no motion at the spark plug, right? We're going to be doing a video which shows what goes on in the cylinder, and that swirl, improving the burn from swirl, is not done quite like people think it is. So watch out for that down the road. Anyway, we are up for our hour now.
Well, answer Daniel right here. And turbulent is not a good word to use.
Daniel, it looks like you're pretty well dialed in on this golf ball turbulence thing, right? What appears to happen is that the turbulence starts on a golf ball, and I'm trying to remember from what I've seen of this, it starts a little later. It allows the air to go around the corner a little further, so it makes the golf ball look like it's a smaller diameter. Right, now then, golf ball dimples advance to turbulent flow that looks laminar to a lower Reynolds number. I'm not sure I fully understand what you're saying there. Drag goes down, but only when the speed is high enough. Well, trust me, the speed in ports is definitely high enough. right? I mean, we are getting speeds of 300 and 400 miles an hour. Let me see.
I think if we if a golfer tried to send a golf ball 300 feet per second, he would delaminate the golf ball.
May well be. Anyway, guys,
And let's recognize Dakota. We're not going to be on here much longer, so let me go ahead and knock you out, Dakota.
that's what we do, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. There you go, Dakota. I love doing that. You make my existence worthwhile,
Go
Dakota.
to the smoke one. It's right at the top of the
Oh
picture.
yeah.
I took a trip to a guy with a flow bench and asked him what happens to the air when he blew his vaping smoke into the head he was testing. We were supposed to see what happened and how much of. Okay.
Let me find a video while we're talking. Go ahead and talk.
Yes. Smoke traces can be very interesting. There are times when the smoke trace is so far different from the CFD, computational fluid, yes, CFD, right, that you have to ask yourself, how far could the CFD be out? Now, that said, we must not assume that the particles, that smoke is a vapor, right? The particles of smoke are far bigger than the molecules of air. I don't know the exact number, I can't recall it, but the thing is that smoke can react quite dramatically to a different pressure on one side of smoke particle to the other. And you can have that down to the level that we're dealing with.
I thought we
Anything
had
else?
a smoke video on here, did we?
On our, yes, but we've never published it,
Okay.
right? So, and I don't see it up there. I'm going to use it, so maybe I've put it somewhere so that I know where it is.
I may be able to do a sneak peek on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, we're looking terribly blank. Anyway, look, let's save it for next week, right?
Okay.
So
We
anyway,
got, I mean, that's one of our passions. I've made a few industrial electronic cigarettes to vapor and glycerin, and we've had some good results out of the smoke. You know, it has a way of showing you where the air is going. Is more or less what it is. It's just an alternative way of looking at the flow of a cylinder. You know, instead of just knowing where the doing port mapping, know where your flow numbers are high and where your airspeed's high and low. You can actually see have a visual representation of what it's doing.
okay, guys.
You ready to call it a day? You tired, Dave?
Yes, we've had a long day today and yesterday and the day before. Right, so I'm definitely ready to call it a day.
It's been great being here, Dave, and it's great that all you all are checking in on us. It's nice to know people are following what you're doing, that's showing what you're doing worthwhile, David. But anyway, it'll probably be a few weeks before we get back on. We got some obligation that's going to tie up a lot of our time, so it'll be a few more weeks down the road. We won't be able to do one every week like we've been doing. But appreciate you guys. I reckon I'm ready to go if you are, Dave.
Yep.
Cheers.
We will see you down the road.